Hey guys, welcome back to another impressions slash review video. I'm going to be talking about the latest game that I beat, and that game is The Last of Us, which is a PlayStation 3 exclusive, developed by Naughty Dog, and essentially this is a action slash survival horror game set in a post-apocalyptic world. And before, this game has been getting some great reviews from major gaming publications, including a lot of perfect scores, like 10 out of 10s, and with a good reason. I mean, this game is the perfect way to say goodbye to this generation. And even though we're still gonna get some pretty cool titles, especially on the PlayStation 3, such as Beyond Two Souls, Puppeteer, Gran Turismo 6, I truly think this is the last game that's going to stand out for this generation. And they just did a fantastic job, and for a good reason. This game is getting perfect review scores all across the board. So I want to give a disclaimer before I start talking about the game, though, that this is a spoiler-free impressions video. So if you haven't bought the game yet, or if you're currently in progress throughout the game, don't worry, I'm not gonna spoil any of the major things that happen during the story of the game, because the story of the game is definitely one of the strongest points in this title. I'm just gonna give a brief summary of what the game is about regarding the story. Basically, the game takes place 20 years after this pandemic, or I guess outbreak, happened. And this outbreak was caused by a fungus that affects the nervous system, and it turns humans into the infected, which are zombie-like creatures that obviously attack other people, and if you're bitten or scratched, you become infected as well. So that's how pretty much a major portion of the entire population on Earth got infected. So very few people survived, and those that did, live in shelters and military, like base type of shelters. So basically your mission as Joel is you have to escort this girl called Ellie through different cities in the United States to reach a destination. But I'm not gonna obviously reveal the purpose of why you have to deliver this girl to that particular destination. And with that being said, I really like how the game starts. The game puts you, 20 years. The game starts right when the outbreak happened. So it shows you actually the chaos that underwent when this fungus pandemic exploded. And it's really cool how you actually get to play. It happens at the very beginning of the game. How you play. How you played, when the event happened, and then shortly thereafter the game puts you 20 years later, and you can see the effects. You're playing in this post-apocalyptic type of world, which is very detailed, and that leads me to the next part that I want to talk about, which is the graphics. And Naughty Dog did a fantastic job of milking every last drop of power that the PlayStation 3 has. This game looks beautiful, and you have to consider this is basically a technical marvel, considering the PlayStation 3 is already a 7-year-old hardware. So for being that old and how good this game looks, I think it's really a technical marvel on how Naughty Dog worked on the graphics in this game. And the one thing that I like the best is the attention to detail that they put into this game. Because you have this post-apocalyptic world, and obviously you have all these isolated chaos that was left. For example, debris everywhere, cars, destroyed cars, and then you have the nature growing on major highways, plants and weeds growing in the middle of the city. Obviously, 20 years after. In this post-apocalyptic world, I mean, the amount of detail is amazing, and especially when you go inside buildings, and every room or every office that you visit, or every restaurant, there's so much detail that you really have to take the time to stop for a second and look around just to appreciate how much detail they put into the environment. And the character models look great as well, and I think this game greatly benefits from the pre-rendered cutscenes that it uses, because you can really you can see the amount of detail in the faces in a perfect way, such that they convey convey emotions perfectly to the player. So really cool that they're using pre-rendered cutscenes that look great. Now, as far as the soundtrack, there's not a whole lot to say other than it's great. I'm not really sure who the composer of this game is, but he did a very good job of using some pretty appropriate songs for appropriate parts of the game that really help establish some emotional parts. And so he did a pretty good job in terms of the soundtrack. Now, the gameplay is where the part where there are some highlights, but I also have some gripes. And I'm gonna start with the highlights and what I like the most about the game. The game basically is broken down into exploration segments and combat segments. And my favorite ones were the exploration ones. I know that's gonna sound weird, but the exploration segments are pretty much all you have to do is just walk around the environment and look for a way to progress to the next area. Sometimes you have to do some very light platforming, but for the most part it revolves around looking for a way to progress to the next part. For instance, you're in the middle of a street, and obviously there's debris everywhere. There are barricades and broken cars everywhere. So what you have to do is obviously look for a way to get past that. So you have to pay attention, close attention to your environment, and you may find a ladder on the ground, and you have to pick up the ladder and find a proper position for the ladder to put that, so you can get to a higher ground and actually find your way to the next area of the game. I really enjoyed those segments in the game because they really help you pay attention to your environments and appreciate the art direction that the game took. And the amount of detail on the cities and on the different buildings in the game, different roads. It's just phenomenal. Really cool parts in this game. And so the exploration slash platforming were my favorite sections in the game. And then you have the combat, which I guess it's broken down into, you can either go all guns blazing and just shoot at the enemies, or you can try to use stealth to either kill enemies using stealth, or you can try to find a way around enemies without even fighting them. Personally, I took the approach of trying to do stealth and killing the enemies, and for the most part the game works really well. You can use this hearing functionality, in which it's similar to Batman Arkham City, in which you can sort of like see these different point of view in which you can see where the enemies are walking around, and that helps you plan your tactical approach in terms of stealth or action. And stealth, like I said, it was my my method of preference, and probably the recommended one, because this game doesn't really give you a whole lot of ammo, which accentuates that survival horror element really well. So you can't really go all guns blazing in every single encounter that you have. And the enemies are broken down into, I guess, two categories. You can either face the obviously infected enemies, and then you have human enemies as well, because it's pretty much a struggle for survival. It's a post-apocalyptic world, and there are certain groups that are separated, so you find yourself sometimes fighting against other humans, and obviously the infected. And me personally, I try to use stealth in both situations, but this is where the game also has some problems. One thing that really broke the immersion for me, the full immersion for me, was sometimes your partner, whether it's Ellie or another character in the game, they would start talking to you when you're trying to use stealth. Now, The good thing is that the enemies don't react to the sounds that are made by your AI partner, which is good because otherwise this game would have been impossible to beat. But it really takes away from the immersion of the game because you may try to be sneaking around an infected enemy, and Ellie would start talking to you, which is very unrealistic because the enemies in this game are very sensitive to hearing. So any slight noise that you make, they will notice. But like I said, fortunately enough, if the AI partner makes a lot of noise, the enemies won't notice that. But it takes away from the immersion of the game. Personally, I had a gripe with that. And similarly, when you fight human opponents or enemies, sometimes you would have a human shooting at you with a shotgun, and then you kill him, but he will not give you ammo for the shotgun. I thought that was really unrealistic, if you will, and it takes away from the immersion of the game. I can understand from a design point of view why they would do that, because they're trying to limit your ammo, and try to bring that survival horror element up. But I personally find that a little bit unrealistic, and again, it took me a little bit away from the immersion of the game. But I get sometimes the AI also they act in a very unfair way. Like if you use stealth to defeat a certain group of enemies, whichever enemies are left, the computer would like position them in such a way that it just looks unrealistic, and it's really hard to explain. But if you guys play the game, you probably know what I'm talking about. It's just a little bit unfair and unrealistic in the way that the AI is handled, and it was frustrating at parts, because I would spend 20 minutes being really careful, using a stealth tactical approach, and all of a sudden, because the AI decided to switch things around, then I would get noticed at the very last second, and I would either get killed, and I have to repeat the same segment all over again. So it was really frustrating. And also towards the end of the game, this game suffers from the Naughty Dog touch, if you will. Similarly to the Uncharted games, they just throw you a bunch of unnecessary encounters with enemies. It's almost like the developer realizes, okay, the player is reaching the end of the game, therefore we need to make things harder for him, and therefore we're just gonna throw you a bunch of enemies. And that to me, I really hate that. I know that I know what their intent is. They're trying to make things harder for you because you're reaching the end of the game, but I think it's handled in the incorrect way, I think, because this game is all about a post-apocalyptic world in which there are very few humans left and very few infected left too, because humans have been killing the infected throughout the years and vice versa. So I didn't really like that about the game, but overall, the gameplay it's great. I have a few gripes, and I decided to mention them in this video, just to share my my negative points, if you will. But overall, this is a triple A. I'm not gonna say 10 out of 10, but definitely close to a 10 in my book. And I'm definitely gonna have a hard time choosing between this game and BioShock Infinite and whatever other game I consider for my top game of 2013. And as far as overall enjoyment, I really had a good time with this game. I really like the fact that the story is very good, and it keeps you want to play the game more and more just to find out what happens next. And the bond that the game establishes between Joel and Ellie is phenomenal. It's like an ongoing bond that evolves. The more you play, the stronger the bond between the two characters gets. And I guess in a way it's similar to Eco, in which the game really relies on that bond and that relationship between two characters. The trust and the friendship, they really matter. And the game does a beautiful job of showing you a progression as the game goes on between the two characters of the game. So this game also has a multiplayer mode, which I haven't really played or tried yet. but I will definitely get on that. But you know, the meat and potatoes of this game lie on the single player mode, and this game is very well worth the $60 asking price point. So if you have a PlayStation 3, do yourself a favor and buy this game if you haven't done so already. And this is, as I mentioned, the perfect way to say goodbye to this generation of games. And The Last of Us is really, from a narrative and story point of view, is one of the best games of this generation. Not only for the PlayStation 3, but of the generation. Trust me, the game is really powerful, and in my opinion, easily the best Naughty Dog game. And that's saying a lot, because they're a pretty good developer, and they have a bunch of quality titles out there. So The Last of Us, really a masterpiece. It has a few flaws here and there. Hopefully Naughty Dog can correct those for future games, whether they're Uncharted games or new IPs. I think they should look a little bit more at the AI and the I guess enemy design. But other than that, The Last of Us, fantastic game. Hopefully you guys get to try this game. Let me know what you think about the game in the comments section. And thank you for watching, and I'll see you all next time.